They told you that attraction was chemistry, that the butterflies in your stomach, your racing heart, your body on alert in front of someone, was the sign of a magical connection. That feeling obsessed, overcome by desire, was proof of love. But Carl Jung would look you in the eye and say, "No, that's not magic. It's your shadow." Sexual attraction isn't just biology or romance. It's a profound psychological phenomenon, an encounter with what you haven't yet integrated into yourself. When desire is so strong that it seems to escape reason, it's not love, it's projection. It's your psyche saying, "There's everything you haven't recognized in yourself." And the body responds as if it has found a lost half. Jung claimed that within every man lives the anima, and within every woman, the animus. These are unconscious figures, charged with emotional energy, representing everything that has been repressed, denied, or never developed. And what happens when we find someone who reflects exactly this inner content? The psyche ignites. Desire explodes. Reason is extinguished. You don't fall in love with the real person, but with the part of yourself that they mirror. And here lies the danger. This intensity does not arise from fulfillment but from lack. You are attracted not by what is good for you, but by what completes the unfinished narrative of your life. That is why so many men fall in love with cold, inaccessible women, and so many return to them even after rejection. They are not loving the woman, but trying for the 100th time to win the affection they lacked in childhood. And so many women, in turn, feel trapped by distant, domineering men who are incapable of offering affection. It's not that they prefer to suffer. It's that their unconscious pushes them to relive the relationship with the father who never saw them. The cycle repeats itself. The unconscious chooses, you call it fate. Chemistry is just a disguise for an older compulsion to rewrite the pain. And the more intense the feeling, the more dangerous it can be. Because desire, when born from a wound, turns into addiction. You don't fall in love with the person. You fall in love with the pattern they represent. That's why so many toxic relationships seem impossible to leave. It's not love. It's psychological imprisonment. The body reacts not to the truth but to the familiarity of pain. And as long as you don't bring this dynamic to light, you will continue to change partners without ever changing your story. Jung warns us, until you confront your shadow, you will remain its puppet. What you call passion may just be your pain disguised as desire. What you call a soulmate may just be the mirror of your wound. But there is a way out. The path is individuation, integrating shadow anima animus, accepting your wounds and stopping projecting them onto others. Only then does love cease to be a compulsion and become a choice. Only then do you free yourself from blind chemistry and find conscious love, the kind that does not imprison but strengthens. This is the starting point of this journey. Before we talk about what you should look for in others, we must ask, what in me still seeks to be healed through them? You are not always attracted to what is good for you. Most of the time, you are attracted to what completes your internal narrative. And that narrative is not always a love story. Often it is a tragedy. The desire you call passion may just be the echo of an old trauma, the reflection of a wound that never healed. Think of a man who grew up without ever being truly seen by his own mother. An emotionally cold figure who offered affection only as a reward, never as a constant presence. As an adult, this man may feel magnetically attracted to women who reject him, who pull away, who make love a game of conquest. He feels alive when he has to chase after them, when he has to prove he is worthy of being loved. But deep down, he is not falling in love with her. He is trying to rewrite the past, to win the battle he lost in childhood. This is the compulsion of sexual trauma. Not always physical trauma, but the silent trauma of unresolved emotional patterns. The partner is not loved for who she is, but for the battlefield she represents. With each refusal, he relives the original pain. And paradoxically, the more she denies him, the more he desires her. The mirror is also reversed. Many women are not looking for love, but for power. They don't want to be loved. They want to be adored, pursued, idolized. They turn their sexuality into a weapon, not out of malice, but out of neediness. Their shadow has never known secure affection. So when a man loses himself in obsession with them, they feel alive, almost avenged. But as soon as the request for real intimacy arises, they flee, because illusion cannot withstand truth. This is where Jung offers the key. What we call passion may just be a disguise for pain. It is not about connection, but about a trap. The unconscious creates a theater and distributes the roles, making the other a mirror that reflects exactly what we lack. And if we are not aware of this, we continue to perform the same play with different actors. You believe you are choosing, but in reality you are being chosen by your wound. The unconscious dictates the silent rules and you obey, convinced that you are living a unique story, when in fact you are repeating an old script. That is why Jung insisted, sexual attraction cannot be understood solely as biology or romance. It is a deep psychological mechanism, capable of exposing our most intimate needs. And if you never ask yourself, who do I really desire and why? You will remain trapped in the compulsion to repeat. The most disturbing thing is that often the person you desire most is precisely the one sent to destroy you. Not because they are evil, but because your unconscious insists on reliving the original wound, in the hope that this time you will survive. This is not love. This is karma. And karma is not punishment. It is repetition. And repetition only ceases when consciousness is born. When you stop believing that you are seeking love, and realize that you are just trying to close an unfinished circle. The darkness, after all, is not in the other person. It is in you. It is in what you project, what you pursue, and what you run away from. Sexual attraction can be sacred, but only when you have the courage to look at the demon behind desire. Only then can you ask, is it love, or is it my unfinished story using me once again? The most dangerous thing about this dynamic is that you don't even realize when it's not you who is choosing. It is the unconscious that pulls the strings silently, and you dance believing you are in control. Consider the real case of a respected, intelligent man admired by all, a successful professional, emotionally mature in many areas. However, whenever he fell in love, he fell into the same pattern. Women who rejected him. One left him for another disappeared after moments of intimacy, yet another ridiculed him when he showed vulnerability. Different faces, same story. He would say to himself, she's not good for me, I know. His friends warned him. But he would return, as if he were trapped by an invisible force. Logic failed, reason bent, and the cycle began again. Why? Because it wasn't love he was looking for. It was resolution. This man had grown up under the cold gaze of a distant mother, unable to give him the affection every child needs. He learned early on that love was something that had to be earned. As his psyche matured, it continued to try to resolve this wound. The women who rejected him were just shadows projected from his mother, ghosts he pursued in the hope of finally being seen. That's the trap. You're not chasing the person, you're chasing the ghost. The name, the face, the body don't matter. What holds you back is the echo of an absence that has never been filled. That's why Jung claimed that sexual attraction can be a psychological loop, an elegant prison disguised as romance. And the same is true for many women. How often do we hear, why am I only attracted to men who hurt me? Or, I lose interest when someone is too good for me. This is not a character flaw, but emotional conditioning. Many grew up believing that love had to be earned, that affection was a prize and not a gift. So, when faced with available men, they feel bored. But when they find one who is cold, distant, challenging, their body reacts. It's as if the unconscious says, this is it. I recognize this pain. Let's try again. But there is no victory in this game. The indifferent partner is not the father who didn't see them. He didn't come to heal, he just came to repeat. And as long as there is no awareness, the repetition will continue. Even more cruel. There are those who know, consciously or not, how to exploit this pattern. Men and women who discover that silence, indifference, and refusal can generate obsession in the other. And they use this as a weapon, reinforcing the victim's emotional slavery. They don't offer love, they offer triggers. They don't offer presence, only strategically dosed absences. And the victim, confused, calls it passion. They don't realize they are in a trance. And it is this trance that Jung wanted to expose. The fine line between desire and compulsion, between love and addiction. What is at stake here is not just romance. It is identity, it is validation, it is power. That is why, when sexual attraction mixes with emotional wounds, it becomes explosive. The feeling of overwhelming chemistry is not magic. It is traumatic repetition. In the end, it doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman. The pattern is the same. The unconscious will always seek to finish the story that was left open. And as long as you don't realize this, you will continue to write the same chapter in different bodies, believing you are living new stories. But the truth is that you are not loving. You are trying to survive the past. This revelation leads us to an even more disturbing point, when attraction ceases to be just compulsion and becomes a weapon. When someone discovers that they can use desire as a form of domination. And that's where we dive into the next chapter. Some people discover, consciously or unconsciously, that they can use this dynamic to control. They don't need to shout, they don't need to impose force. They just learn to manipulate the game of absence and presence. They attract with their bodies but retain with emptiness. They deliver physical intensity but deny emotional intimacy. This is the most powerful and most dangerous hook. Many women, for example, realize early on that seduction is not only about beauty, but about how they become mirrors of male desire. They learn to embody the anima of the man, that unconscious figure he never integrated. They do not present themselves as real women, but as projections, living fantasies. And the man, blind, believes he has found his missing half. But he did not fall in love with her. He fell in love with the internal image she reflects. And here is the scariest part. She does not love him either. What attracts her is not the man himself, but the feeling of control. When she sees him lose himself, beg, surrender, she feels she is regaining something that life has denied her: power, security, even revenge. It is the theater of the unconscious in its cruelest version, where no one truly meets. They are just cracked mirrors reflecting shadows. In these relationships, intimacy is not an encounter, it is a performance. Two bodies come together, but it is their wounds that dialogue. The desire is intense, but it is not love. It is mutual compulsion. One seeks to be seen, the other seeks to dominate. And the more intense the connection seems, the more destructive it becomes. Because in fact, it is not a connection, it is imprisonment. Jung called this the projection trap. The man believes he loves, but he loves his own wound. The woman believes she is desired, but she is only the interpreter of a trauma. And so both lose themselves in a game with no winner. That's why attraction, when it comes from the shadow, can be so addictive. The conscious mind may scream, "This isn't healthy. I need to get out." But the body responds, "No. This is where I recognize the story. This is where I feel alive." And this conflict creates chaos. Love becomes war. Desire becomes addiction. Intimacy becomes a battlefield. The only antidote is awareness. Only when you stop and ask yourself, what exactly does this person awaken in me? Does it remind me of something from the past? Is it security or just adrenaline? Do you begin to unravel the web? And often the answer is brutal. The person you call the love of your life is just the echo of childhood pain. The shiver you interpret as chemistry may just be your body recognizing an old wound. This is why so many people say, "I always choose the same type of person," or "I knew it would hurt me, but I couldn't help it." It's not a conscious choice, it's unconscious repetition. It's the shadow pulling the strings, while you call it fate. But Jung didn't stop at denouncing it. He offered a way out: individuation. The process of integrating shadow, anima, and animus, so that we can finally choose with clarity. Until then, we continue as puppets of desire. And the more we run away from this truth, the stronger the cycle repeats itself. If you keep chasing unavailable women, cruel men, chaotic relationships, ask yourself, What part of me is deciding this? And why does it feel like home? Because that's exactly what it is. Your psyche confuses trauma with home. Until there is integration, you will continue to call love what is, in fact, only imprisonment. This understanding leads us to the next step, realizing that it's not just the people we choose, but the wounds we carry that determine the kind of love we seek. It's time to see how these internal scars scream louder than reason, shaping your entire love life. The wounds you carry speak louder than any words of love. They echo in silence, shape choices, distort perceptions. No matter how much you promise yourself that next time will be different, if the unconscious continues to drive you, you will keep repeating. This is the darkest truth about sexual attraction. It does not obey what you consciously desire, but what your pain demands. Most people believe they are falling in love with qualities: the eyes, the smile, the intelligence, the energy. But in reality, they are falling in love with the pattern, the one that mirrors the unfinished story. It is as if life puts the same script in front of you, changing only the cast. The narrative remains, not being chosen, having to beg for attention, carrying the feeling that love always means absence. Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is what happens in the most intense and destructive relationships. What you call overwhelming chemistry is actually the repetition of trauma. Take the man who insists on falling in love with intense, seductive, passionate, but emotionally devastating women. He calls it passion, but he always ends up exhausted, confused, and broken. It's not passion, it's possession. He doesn't love the woman, but his shadow projected onto her. His childhood wound, the belief that he is only valuable when he is desired and at the same time rejected. The logic is cruel. When she validates him, he feels like a god. When she walks away, he feels like nothing. Love should not be this back and forth of power, but a space for encounter. However, for him, this movement is addictive because it repeats the original dance with the mother who never saw him. The same is true for so many women who seek inaccessible men. They say they are attracted to the mystery of the cold, dominant man who offers crumbs of attention. But the body does not react to mystery. It reacts to memory. That distant and absent man is the mirror of a father who never offered his presence. So, the psyche constructs the illusion. If I win this man over, I will finally have the validation I lacked. But that never happens. He is not the father. He was not made to heal. This dynamic is called repetition compulsion, a mechanism by which we unconsciously recreate the same painful scenarios in an attempt to finally overcome them. But victory never comes because the battle is not with the other person. It is internal. The scariest thing is that attraction, in this context, becomes manipulable. Just touch the right spot, the wound that never healed, and the person is lost. It doesn't matter how rational or independent they consider themselves to be. Desire turns into a cry from the past, and what looks like passion is just trauma disguised as chemistry. That's why the most toxic relationships are the hardest to leave. It's not about true love, but invisible strings that bind, sewn by pain. You're not in love with the person, but with the hope of finally rewriting history. And here's the brutal revelation. Until you become aware of this pattern, you will remain a hostage. Loving will only be repeating the pain with different faces. But if you have the courage to face the wound, if you dare to call it by its name, the cycle begins to break. This awakening leads us to the next step. Because the question is not just understanding the problem, but asking, is there a way out? Is it still possible to experience true love in the face of such a powerful unconscious? You are not stuck repeating the same stories over and over again. But you need to abandon the illusion that attraction automatically means compatibility. This is where the real turnaround begins. It is not about running away from desire, but about investigating it. Every time you feel that magnetic force towards someone, ask yourself questions. Why am I so attracted to this person? What does she awaken in me? Does this desire come from my fulfillment or my lack? Because when desire comes from lack, it always turns into dependence. You chase, you beg, you lose yourself. And yet, the emptiness is never filled. No body, no promise, no game of seduction can heal the absence that belongs only to you. That healing begins within. Jung believed that the path to true love goes through individuation, the process of integrating shadow, wounds, and projections. Only then do you stop loving to survive and start loving to choose. Only then does the other cease to be the promise of a healed past and become a real presence in the now. And that's the scary part. Conscious love at first can seem dull. There is no storm, no obsession, no adrenaline rush of war. Instead, there is calm. There is security. There is silence. To a heart accustomed to chaos, this sounds like boredom. But it is not boredom, it is peace. It just seems strange because your body has been conditioned to confuse pain with passion. You have to relearn how to feel. That person who leaves you in no doubt, who doesn't make you beg, who doesn't make you feel small. Maybe that's exactly what you need. But in the beginning, the ego rejects it. Because the ego likes intensity. Only the soul recognizes the value of tranquility. And it is in this recognition that love is born. A love that does not imprison but liberates. When you embrace your own shadow, when you welcome the parts of yourself that still cry out for attention, something changes. Desire ceases to be compulsion and becomes choice. You no longer seek those who reproduce your wound, but those who mirror your healing. This is the love Jung wanted us to find. Not that of despair, but that of consciousness. To love, then, is not to complete what is missing. It is to share what is already whole. It is not to cry out for salvation, but to walk side by side with those who recognize your light and your darkness without trying to mold them. This is the love that does not bind you, but strengthens you. And here is the final key. Before falling to your knees before someone, kneel before the parts of yourself that you have most avoided. Look at them, accept them, heal them. Only then will love cease to be a field of repetition and become a space for creation. In the end, it's not about fearing attraction, but about understanding it. Become an investigator of yourself. Listen to the voices of the unconscious, and no longer confuse cries of pain with songs of love. When you do this, the cycle will be broken, and then you will be free to truly love. If this video moved you, don't leave without taking action. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and consider leaving your support of any amount. Every gesture helps keep this space alive. Write in the comments a word that symbolizes your commitment to breaking the cycle. It can be awareness, integration, or freedom. Choose the one that resonates most with your journey and declare your step toward transformation.